Welcome back to my sunroom. It is nearly complete. The only thing I need to do is build a nice looking potting bench for here. This is the 2 clone tomato plants that I have mentioned in the title. I'm going to talk about them at the end of the video. This is supposed to be a sub-irrigated planter. I took the plastic out, I lined it with fiberglass, but it's still leaking. So I guess it's going to be a regular planter. I'll water it from the top. There's 16 inches of soil in here and 56 gallons of soil. The yellow pear tomatoes that I had in my last video about the sunroom, they have grown right to the top of the 6-foot trellis and above. I didn't get the chance to make a bunch of trellises. I have 4 made, and then I said I had to get these planted because they were getting away. The tomato plants were getting bigger. They needed to be planted. I took some pots that I thought were big enough and planted them in it. This one is a tiny Tim, so it doesn't need a big pot anyway. This one is Starfire improved. It grows about twice the size of a tiny Tim. I brought in my pepper plants, and a good job I did, because the last 2 nights it was 2 degrees Celsius, almost down to freezing. This is the original Apache pepper. Here's one of its offspring. They all have peppers growing on them that was started outside. Second one, third one, and fourth one. So I have 5 Apache pepper plants here. This one, as you can see, looks quite a bit different than this one, but they're supposed to be the same pepper. The seed came from the same pepper plant. So we'll see what happens, I guess, when they produce. What else I have in here? I have a rosemary there. I planted 2 rosemary last year out in the garden, and come spring, while they were dead, then I checked the label. Rosemary here, it's zone 7 or something. I said, oh, that might be a good reason why it didn't come back after the winter. This is sweet marjoram here, and a Spanish mint. When I got to planting the tomatoes, I was planning on having 2 of each variety, and I realized I have 8 varieties of tomatoes. There's no way I'm going to fit them in here without and still have space for other plants. So I just have 1. Of course, I've already had the 2 yellow pear planted, so I left them there. And I have 2 of the better bush that I had from last year. But everything else is just 1 plant. So I have 8, 9, 10 tomato plants here. I have, this is a muskmelon plant. I'm just growing to see what will happen. And this one here is also a muskmelon. It's from store-bought seeds. I bought the muskmelon and sowed the seeds. I have on the ceiling, don't know how well you can see that, at 1 foot spacing, I have lines strung across. It's two reasons. I decided that I was going to leave the tomatoes here and not cut them down, and if I do decide to move them out, I can trim them down later. But I can hang them once they get high off the lines, like I have done with, with this one. He's on there, and it goes way over here. It's quite a monstrosity of a tomato plant I have growing there. I think this is bush beefsteak, but I failed to label it when I planted it. So if it is, I have 2 bush beefsteak, and I haven't gotten it to produce yet. They're not that easy to produce, This is the better bush that seems to be reliably producing for me a few tomatoes every so often. And the yellow pear tomatoes was doing really well. I removed the old ones and just waiting now for these 2 to start producing. The other thing with the lines, I can hang herbs to dry. So that's some parsley and basil that I just cut down out in the garden. I hung up there now. So I have herbs hung up there and maybe some vines up on the lines up above. I have some plants here that I'm going to plant in that planter. The red is amaranth. What variety? I have 2 varieties of amaranth. This is Hoppy Red Dye. I have one growing in the garden. He's another variety. Burgundy. I'm going to plant these in the planter just to see what will happen, because it's too late to plant them out now. And there's some cabbage plants and kale plants to be planted and see what happens. Now, back to these guys. These are better bush. I meant to do this last week, and as you can see, they're getting quite tall and needed to be transplanted before now. But I went to the better bush thinking I wanted to refresh them, get a nice fresh plant growing. And so, thinking that they root along the vine, I came here, took a piece like this. I take my piece that I just clipped off from the mother plant and clip off the lower vines before it's much too long. So I want it to go to the bottom of the cup like that. And do this a couple times and make sure they Soil is well soaked. So now we've got water coming out the bottom, so the soil is soaked down through. Now I add a little bit of soil for what that water has settled down. And I just put this back and waited. I believe it was 3 weeks ago. You keep the soil moist, and this is the younger one, so this is the one I'm going to plant. So let's take this one out, and you'll see the roots that have grown on it. So here's the root system that have grown out from that one little piece of tomato plant that I put in there. So I'm growing right there on the end. You see, this is the bottom piece here. Most of the roots are up from the top. I don't know if that's because I was top watering it or not, but roots have come out all the way down the vine, and then your vine starts to grow again. It was short like that other one when I put them in there. And now I've mixed some soil here. This is some sifted topsoil that I got out back. It is compost, sifted topsoil. Then I put in some of that wood chip mulch and a handful of worm castings from my vermicomposter. Now let's see how tall this one goes. See, this one, the roots is not quite as root bound as the other one, so this is why I wanted to do the younger one. And he is tall enough now I can sit and right down almost to the bottom bucket. There is a little bit of soil in this bucket, so I'll snip off all the lower growth. And these couple of flowers, I don't want it trying to produce fruit right now. And there we are. Fresh, nice looking better bush tomato plant. I'm assuming this can only be done with indeterminate tomatoes, because the determinate tomatoes, they die after a time anyway. In doing this, if you have an indoor grow area like I do, and you have a tomato plant of questionable genetics or an hybrid, you don't have seed to grow a new one, but you really like the production of the one you have, you can clone it. The two advantages to that, of course, is renewing a weathered looking plant, and you, like I said, have a fresh young looking one, and also you can renew the soil that it's growing in, because if you're growing them in pots, after a while the soil will get aged and the nutrients drain from it. And so if you clone the plant, then you start over with a fresh pot of soil. That's the update for the sunroom. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you've been inspired. And I'll talk to you in the next video.